Picture this: a woman in her 50s, successful in her career, respected by her peers, admired by her friends. She's weathered storms, raised children, built businesses, survived divorces. She knows the red flags. She's read the books. She's been through therapy. And yet, here she is again, lying awake at 3 in the morning, wondering how she ended up in the same painful relationship pattern she swore she'd never repeat. If you've ever looked at your own reflection and asked yourself how someone as intelligent as you could fall for the same type of man over and over again, this video is going to change everything you thought you knew about love, attraction, and the invisible forces that guide your heart toward the very men you know you should avoid. Welcome back to The Heart Code, where we explore the deepest truths about relationships, psychology, and the human heart. Today, we're diving into one of the most painful and confusing paradoxes that countless intelligent, accomplished older women face: the seemingly inexplicable pattern of choosing partners who hurt them despite knowing better. Before we begin, if you find value in this exploration, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts or experiences, subscribe to the channel for more deep insights into relationship psychology. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. And if you'd like to support the work we do here, consider showing your appreciation with a super thanks. Your support allows us to continue creating content that transforms lives. Now, let's unlock the mystery of why brilliant women often make choices in love that contradict everything they know to be true. The great paradox. Let's start by acknowledging the elephant in the room. When we talk about smart older women falling for the wrong men, we're not suggesting that these women are stupid or lacking in judgment. Quite the opposite. We're talking about women who excel in virtually every other area of their lives. They're doctors, lawyers, business owners, teachers, artists, executives. They're women who can read a contract and spot the fine print that protects them. They can sense when a business deal isn't right. They can tell when a friend is being dishonest. They can navigate complex professional relationships with wisdom and grace. Yet when it comes to romantic love, it's as if all that intelligence, all that experience, all that hard-won wisdom simply evaporates. They find themselves drawn to men who display the same red flags they've encountered before. Men who are emotionally unavailable. Men who make promises they never keep. Men who are charming one moment and cold the next. Men who need to be fixed, rescued, or saved. Men who can't commit. Men who lie. Men who manipulate. And the question that haunts these women, often in the quiet moments when they're alone with their thoughts, is this: how can I be so smart in every other area of my life and so seemingly foolish when it comes to love? The shame and silence. Before we go any further, we need to address the shame that surrounds this topic. Many women carry a deep sense of embarrassment about their relationship choices. They feel they should know better. They believe that at their age, with their life experience, they shouldn't still be making these mistakes. This shame often prevents them from talking about what they're going through. They don't want to appear weak or foolish to their friends and family. They don't want to admit that despite all their accomplishments, they're struggling in this fundamental area of life. So they suffer in silence. They put on a brave face. They pretend everything is fine while inside they're falling apart. But here's what you need to understand. Falling for the wrong man has nothing to do with your intelligence or your worth as a person. It's not a character flaw. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a complex psychological phenomenon that has roots in neuroscience, childhood development, trauma responses, cultural conditioning, and the very nature of human attachment. Understanding why this happens is the first step toward breaking the pattern. So let's release the shame right now. If you found yourself in this situation, you're not alone. You're not stupid. and you're not beyond hope. The brain chemistry of attraction. To understand why smart women fall for the wrong men, we need to start with the brain. When you're attracted to someone, especially in those early stages of a relationship, your brain undergoes profound chemical changes. Your brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. It releases norepinephrine, which increases your heart rate and makes you feel energized and alert. It releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone that creates feelings of attachment and trust. And here's where it gets interesting. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking, decision-making, and impulse control, actually becomes less active when you're in the throes of romantic attraction. This isn't a metaphor. This is literal brain science. Researchers have used brain imaging technology to show that when people look at pictures of someone they're newly in love with, the areas of the brain associated with critical thinking and negative emotions show decreased activity. Your brain, quite literally, loses some of its ability to think clearly and assess danger. This is why otherwise rational people do irrational things when they're falling in love. This is why you might ignore red flags that would be obvious to you in any other context. Your brain is essentially intoxicated. And just like alcohol or drugs, this intoxication impairs your judgment. The intermittent reinforcement trap. Now you might be thinking that this brain chemistry explanation applies to everyone falling in love, not just women falling for the wrong men. And you'd be right. But here's where things get darker. The wrong men, whether consciously or unconsciously, often engage in a pattern of behavior that's particularly effective at creating powerful psychological bonds. It's called intermittent reinforcement, and it's the same principle that makes gambling so addictive. When you're in a relationship with intermittent reinforcement, you don't know when the next reward is coming. Sometimes the man you're with is wonderful. He's attentive, loving, present, exactly what you've always wanted. But then, without warning, he withdraws. He becomes cold, distant, unavailable. Then, just when you're about to give up, he comes back. He's wonderful again. The cycle repeats. This unpredictability creates a powerful addiction. Your brain releases huge amounts of dopamine, not just when you receive affection, but when you're anticipating it, hoping for it, wondering if this time will be the time he finally shows up consistently. The uncertainty becomes thrilling, even though intellectually you know it's painful. Laboratory studies with rats have shown that intermittent reinforcement creates stronger behavioral patterns than consistent reinforcement. A rat will press a lever more times and for longer periods if it receives food only occasionally and unpredictably than if it receives food every time it presses the lever. The same principle applies to human relationships. The wrong man, with his unpredictable behavior, creates a stronger bond than a stable, consistently available man precisely because of his inconsistency. Your intelligent brain knows this isn't healthy, but your primal brain, the part that's hardwired for survival and reward-seeking, is caught in a powerful loop. The trauma bond. This brings us to one of the most important concepts in understanding why smart women stay with wrong men: trauma bonding. A trauma bond is a powerful emotional attachment that develops between two people when one person intermittently abuses, manipulates, or hurts the other, interspersed with positive reinforcement. It's counterintuitive. You would think that abuse and mistreatment would push people apart, but the opposite often happens. The combination of fear, dependency, and intermittent kindness creates a bond that can be even stronger than a healthy relationship bond. Think about hostage situations. In cases of Stockholm Syndrome, hostages develop positive feelings toward their captors. This isn't because the hostages are weak or foolish. It's because the human brain, when faced with a threat it can't escape, often develops attachment to the threat as a survival mechanism. In abusive or toxic relationships, a similar dynamic occurs. The woman's nervous system is in a constant state of activation. She's walking on eggshells, trying to predict her partner's moods, working hard to keep the peace. When he's kind to her, the relief is enormous. That relief, that temporary reprieve from tension, creates a powerful positive association. She feels grateful for his kindness, even though he's the source of her distress in the first place. Over time, this cycle of tension, explosion, reconciliation, and calm becomes normalized. The woman's identity begins to organize around the relationship. She loses touch with what healthy love feels like. She begins to believe that this intensity, this emotional roller coaster, is what real love looks like. And because she's invested so much time, energy, and emotion into the relationship, the thought of leaving feels like losing a part of herself. The childhood blueprint. For many women, the pattern of choosing the wrong men isn't random. It's an unconscious attempt to resolve childhood wounds. In psychology, this is known as repetition compulsion. We're drawn to relationships that recreate the emotional environment of our childhood, especially if that childhood had significant challenges. If you grew up with a parent who was emotionally unavailable, unpredictable, critical, or conditional in their love, you learned certain lessons about relationships. You learned that love is something you have to earn. You learned that you're not enough as you are. You learned that relationships require you to be vigilant, to work hard, to prove your worth. You learned that abandonment is always just around the corner. These lessons became wired into your nervous system. They became part of your subconscious blueprint for what love looks like. Now, as an adult, when you meet a man who is emotionally unavailable, your childhood self recognizes him. There's a familiar quality to the relationship. And while your adult self might feel frustrated and hurt, your inner child feels oddly at home. This man feels like love because he recreates the emotional patterns you experienced growing up. Moreover, there's an unconscious hope at play. Part of you believes that if you can just love this man well enough, if you can just be patient enough, understanding enough, supportive enough, he will finally open up. He will finally see your worth. He will finally give you the consistent love you've always wanted. In psychological terms, you're trying to earn from this man what you couldn't earn from your parent. You're trying to rewrite the ending of an old story. But here's the painful truth. You can't heal a childhood wound through an adult relationship. The work of healing must be done within yourself. The empathy trap. One of the qualities that makes you a good person, your empathy, can actually work against you when it comes to choosing partners. Empathetic people, especially women who've been socialized to be caretakers, have a natural tendency to see the potential in others. When you meet a man who's struggling, a man who's been hurt, a man who has obvious pain beneath his difficult behaviors, your empathy kicks in. You see who he could be if he just had the right support. You see the wounded boy inside the difficult man. You tell yourself that he's not really like this. He's just been through so much. If you can just love him enough, if you can just show him that not all women are like his ex, if you can just be patient while he works through his issues, he'll transform into the man you know he can be. This isn't naivete, it's the overflow of your caring heart. But what often happens is that your empathy becomes a trap. You become so focused on his pain, his potential, his story, that you lose sight of your own needs. You accept behaviors you would never tolerate from anyone else. You make excuses for him. You give him second chances, then third chances, then countless chances beyond that. You sacrifice your own well-being for the fantasy of who he might become. And meanwhile, he remains exactly who he is. Here's a hard truth. Empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. Understanding why someone behaves the way they do doesn't mean you have to tolerate behavior that hurts you. Seeing someone's potential doesn't obligate you to stay while they refuse to reach for it. Your empathy is a gift, but it's meant to be given wisely, not indiscriminately. The fear of being alone. Let's talk about something many women are reluctant to admit: the fear of being alone. As an older woman, especially if you've been through divorce or multiple failed relationships, there can be an underlying terror of ending up alone. Society sends powerful messages about women's worth being tied to their relationship status. There's still a stigma around being a single older woman. There's a pervasive narrative that suggests that if you're not partnered, something must be wrong with you. Even if you intellectually reject these messages, they can still operate at a subconscious level, influencing your choices. When you meet a man who shows interest in you, even if he's not right for you, there can be a voice in your head that says, "At least it's something. At least you're not alone. At least someone wants you." This fear can make you tolerant of behaviors you shouldn't tolerate. It can make you stay in relationships that hurt you because the pain of being with the wrong man feels less frightening than the pain of being alone. There's also a phenomenon in economics called the sunk cost fallacy, and it applies to relationships too. The more time, energy, and emotion you've invested in a relationship, the harder it becomes to leave, even when you know it's not working. You think about the years you've already given. You think about your age. You think about the effort it would take to start over. And so you stay, hoping things will change, even though deep down you know they won't. But here's what you need to understand. Being alone is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Being in a relationship that slowly erodes your sense of self, that damages your mental and emotional health, that keeps you from growing into who you're meant to be, that's far worse than being alone. Solitude can be an opportunity for self-discovery, healing, and growth. The right relationship will add to your life, not merely fill a void. The desire to be chosen. There's a particular dynamic that traps many smart women: the desire to be chosen by someone who's hard to win over. When you meet a man who's emotionally guarded, who doesn't give his affection easily, who seems like a challenge, something in you rises to meet that challenge. If you can get this man to open up, to choose you, to commit to you, it will prove something important about your worth. This desire often has roots in childhood experiences where love was conditional or hard to earn, but it also taps into a very human need for validation. We tend to value things we have to work for more than things that come easily. A man who's immediately available, who shows consistent interest, who makes his feelings clear, can seem less exciting than a man who keeps you guessing. The chase, the uncertainty, the hope that this time you'll break through his defenses, it creates a sense of drama and intensity that can feel like passion. But this is where intelligence needs to override emotion. A relationship built on the foundation of trying to earn someone's love is exhausting. It's not sustainable, and it's not actually love. Real love isn't something you have to constantly prove you deserve. Real love doesn't require you to twist yourself into shapes to be acceptable. Real love doesn't keep you in a state of anxiety, wondering if you're enough. If you find yourself in a relationship where you're constantly trying to win over a man who remains ambivalent, you need to ask yourself, do I want to be chosen by someone who can't fully choose me, or do I want to choose myself? The biological clock myth. For women in their 40s, 50s, and beyond, there's often a narrative they've internalized about time running out. Even if you're past childbearing years, or if you never wanted children, there's still a cultural message that suggests your value in the romantic marketplace decreases with age. This message is insidious and largely false, but it can create a sense of urgency that leads to poor decision-making. You might feel pressure to make a relationship work even when it's clearly not working. because you believe this might be your last chance. You might overlook red flags because you think you don't have time to be picky. You might settle for less than you deserve because you've bought into the lie that your options are limited. But here's the truth: there is no timeline for love. There is no expiration date on your ability to find a fulfilling relationship. Women find love in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. What's more important than finding someone quickly is finding someone right. And if that means being alone for a while longer, so be it. The urgency you feel is based on fear, not reality. When you make decisions from a place of scarcity and fear, you rarely make good decisions. When you make decisions from a place of abundance and self-worth, trusting that the right person will come along when the time is right, you make much better choices. Your age is not a liability. Your age is an asset. You have wisdom, experience, self-knowledge, and depth that younger women don't have. The right man will see this and value it. The wrong man will try to exploit your fear that time is running out. The fantasy of rescue. Many women, even successful, independent women, carry a fantasy of being rescued. It's a fantasy that's been fed to us through countless movies, novels, and cultural narratives. The idea is that somewhere out there is a man who will sweep into your life and make everything better. He'll provide security, excitement, purpose, validation. He'll complete you. He'll rescue you from loneliness, from struggle, from the hard work of building a meaningful life. This fantasy becomes particularly seductive when you're going through a difficult time. Maybe you're dealing with financial stress, health issues, family problems, or simply the exhaustion of carrying life's burdens on your own. When a man appears who seems strong, confident, capable, who promises to take care of you, who offers relief from your struggles, it's tempting to hand over your power. But here's what often happens. The man who promises to rescue you is often the same man who will eventually control you. Because rescue fantasies are built on an inherent imbalance. If he's the rescuer, you're the damsel in distress. If he's the strong one, you must be weak. If he's saving you, you owe him. This dynamic sets up a relationship where you're not equals. And in relationships without equality, there's no foundation for genuine intimacy, respect, or lasting love. Moreover, the fantasy of rescue keeps you from recognizing your own power. You are not a damsel in distress. You are not helpless. You don't need a man to complete you or save you. What you need is a partner who respects your strength, who supports your growth, who stands beside you as an equal. The work of building a meaningful life is your work. No one can do it for you, and frankly, no one should. The cultural conditioning. We can't talk about why smart women fall for the wrong men without acknowledging the role of cultural conditioning. From the time you were a little girl, you received messages about what it means to be a good woman. You learned that your value comes from being attractive, desirable, and chosen by a man. You learned that love requires sacrifice. You learned that a woman's role is to support, nurture, and care for others, often at the expense of her own needs. You learned that you should be understanding when men behave badly, because boys will be boys. You learned that if a relationship fails, it's somehow your fault for not being enough. You learned that you should fix, heal, and transform the men in your life. You learned that your anger is unacceptable, but you should tolerate his. You learned that being single is a failure, but staying in a bad relationship is noble. These messages are deeply embedded in the collective consciousness. They operate beneath the surface of your awareness, shaping your choices in ways you don't even realize. Even if you consider yourself a feminist, even if you consciously reject these ideas, they can still influence you. Breaking free from cultural conditioning requires conscious awareness and ongoing effort. It requires questioning the beliefs you've internalized about love, relationships, and your role as a woman. It requires recognizing that many of the qualities you've been taught are virtues, like selflessness and unconditional giving, can actually be harmful when they lead you to tolerate mistreatment. Being a strong woman doesn't mean enduring suffering. Being a loving woman doesn't mean accepting crumbs. Being a good woman doesn't mean silencing your needs. The hope that dies last. There's a Polish proverb that says, "Hope dies last." In the context of relationships with the wrong men, this hope can keep you trapped long past the point when you should have left. Hope is a beautiful quality. It's what allows humans to persevere through difficulty. It's what helps us imagine better futures. But hope, when applied to a relationship with someone who consistently shows you who they are through their actions, can become a form of denial. You hope that he'll change. You hope that this time will be different. You hope that if you just love him enough, support him enough, believe in him enough, he'll finally become the man you know he can be. You focus on the rare moments when he's kind, when he's present, when he seems to understand you, and you tell yourself that this is the real him. The rest is just him being scared or damaged or stressed. You collect these moments like precious gems, holding them up as evidence that your hope is justified. But hope without evidence of change is just wishful thinking. And the painful truth is that people don't change unless they want to change. And most people don't want to change. They might say they want to change. They might promise they'll change. They might even believe they'll change. But wanting to change and actually doing the hard, uncomfortable work of change are two very different things. If you're in a relationship where you're constantly hoping things will get better, where you're waiting for him to have a revelation, where you're making excuses for behavior that hurts you, you need to recognize that your hope is keeping you stuck. Hope should be grounded in reality. It should be supported by consistent actions over time, not just words or occasional gestures. The pattern of choosing unavailable men. Let's examine a specific pattern that plagues many smart women: consistently choosing emotionally unavailable men. An emotionally unavailable man might be unavailable for various reasons. He might still be hung up on his ex. He might be a workaholic who has no time for intimacy. He might have unresolved trauma that prevents him from being vulnerable. He might be physically present but emotionally distant. He might be unable to commit, always keeping one foot out the door. On the surface, it seems masochistic to choose men like this. Why would an intelligent woman keep gravitating toward men who can't give her what she needs? But when you dig deeper, the pattern makes psychological sense. Emotionally unavailable men feel safe to a part of you that's afraid of true intimacy. If he can't fully show up, then you don't have to fully show up either. You don't have to risk being truly seen and potentially rejected. If the relationship never quite gets off the ground, if it exists in a perpetual state of almost but not quite, then you never have to face the vulnerability of a real committed partnership. Moreover, emotionally unavailable men confirm beliefs you might hold about yourself at a subconscious level. If you believe you're not worthy of real love, if you believe you'll always be disappointed, if you believe that men will always leave, then choosing emotionally unavailable men confirms these beliefs. In a twisted way, it feels more comfortable than choosing an available man who might challenge these beliefs. This is what psychologists call a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your subconscious beliefs guide you toward situations that confirm those beliefs, which then reinforces the beliefs further. Breaking this pattern requires becoming conscious of it. It requires asking yourself, what do I gain from choosing unavailable men? What do I avoid? What beliefs about myself and love are operating beneath my choices? The confusion between intensity and intimacy. Many smart women fall for the wrong men because they confuse intensity with intimacy. The relationship feels passionate, dramatic, all-consuming. There are high highs and low lows. The emotional range is extreme. This intensity can feel like depth. It can feel like this must be real love because it's so powerful, so overwhelming, so impossible to ignore. But intensity is not intimacy. Intensity is often driven by anxiety, fear, and instability. Real intimacy is different. It's the ability to be truly yourself with another person without fear of judgment or rejection. It's the safety to be vulnerable. It's the trust that comes from consistent, reliable behavior over time. It's the comfort of knowing that someone sees all of you and still chooses to stay. Intensity can be manufactured by dysfunction. The highs feel higher because the lows are so low. The relief when conflict resolves feels like love, but it's really just relief from distress. The drama creates an adrenaline rush that can be mistaken for passion. But this kind of relationship is exhausting. It keeps your nervous system in a constant state of activation. Over time, it damages your health, your sense of self, and your capacity for genuine joy. Real love, healthy love, feels different. It feels calmer, more stable, less dramatic. And to someone who's become addicted to intensity, healthy love can actually feel boring at first. You might meet a man who's kind, consistent, and emotionally available, and feel no spark. This doesn't mean he's wrong for you. It might mean that your nervous system has been conditioned to associate love with instability. Retraining yourself to recognize and appreciate healthy love is part of breaking the pattern of choosing the wrong men. The role of self-worth. At the core of why smart women fall for the wrong men is usually a question of self-worth. Regardless of your accomplishments, regardless of your intelligence, if you don't truly believe you deserve to be loved well, you will accept less than you deserve. Self-worth isn't something you think your way into. You can't just decide to have high self-worth and make it so. Self-worth is built through experience, through the relationship you have with yourself, through how you treat yourself in both the big moments and the small daily choices. If you consistently override your own needs to please others, if you silence your intuition, if you accept mistreatment, if you make yourself smaller to make others comfortable, you're teaching yourself that your needs don't matter. You're reinforcing the belief that you're not valuable. On the other hand, when you honor your boundaries, when you speak your truth, when you walk away from situations that hurt you, when you choose yourself even when it's difficult, you build genuine self-worth. Here's the paradox. You might be seeking love from a man to feel worthy, but the only way to feel worthy is to love yourself first. When you have solid self-worth, when you truly know your value, you become naturally discerning in who you allow into your life. You recognize red flags immediately because they feel like violations of what you know you deserve. You don't make excuses for poor behavior because you understand that you're not responsible for fixing or changing anyone. You don't stay in relationships that diminish you because you know your worth isn't tied to being chosen by any particular man. Building self-worth is the foundation for choosing better partners. It's not the only factor, but it's perhaps the most important one. The seduction of potential. There's something deeply compelling about potential. When you meet a man who has so much possibility, who could be amazing if only he dealt with his issues, who shows glimpses of being wonderful, it's easy to become invested in his potential rather than his reality. You see what he could be and you want to help him get there. You believe in him, often more than he believes in himself. You think your love can be the catalyst for his transformation. This is especially true for women who are nurturers, fixers, and believers in human potential. But here's a hard lesson. You cannot love someone into becoming who they're not ready to become. Change is an inside job. No amount of love, support, patience, or faith from you can make someone change if they're not internally motivated to do so. While you're focused on his potential, you're ignoring his reality. And the reality is, what you're actually in a relationship with, not the potential, not the maybe, not the someday, the reality of who he is right now, today, in this moment. If you find yourself constantly making statements like, he'll be amazing once he deals with his issues, or he's just going through a rough patch, or he has so much potential if only, you need to stop and ask yourself, am I in love with this person, or am I in love with who I imagine he could be? Are you in a relationship with a real person, or with a fantasy you've created in your mind? The potential you see in him might be real. He might truly have the capacity to become the man you envision. But unless he's actively working toward that potential, unless you see consistent evidence of growth and change, that potential will remain forever unrealized, and you will remain forever waiting. The mismatch of attachment styles. Understanding attachment theory can shed significant light on why smart women end up with the wrong men. Attachment theory suggests that based on our early childhood experiences with caregivers, we develop patterns of relating in romantic relationships. There are 4 main attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. People with secure attachment are comfortable with intimacy and independence. They can be vulnerable without fear and can maintain their autonomy within relationships. People with anxious attachment crave intimacy but fear abandonment and often need constant reassurance. People with avoidant attachment value independence and often feel uncomfortable with too much closeness, pulling away when relationships get too intimate. People with disorganized attachment have elements of both anxious and avoidant, and their behavior can be unpredictable. Here's where it gets interesting. Anxiously attached people are often drawn to avoidant partners, and vice versa. It's a dance that recreates familiar childhood patterns. If you're anxiously attached and you meet a securely attached person who's consistent and available, you might feel no chemistry. Your nervous system doesn't recognize this as love because it's too stable. But when you meet an avoidant person who's hot and cold, who pursues, then withdraws, your nervous system lights up. This feels like love because it recreates the anxiety and uncertainty you experienced in childhood. The push-pull dynamic becomes addictive. When he pulls away, your anxiety spikes and you pursue harder. When you pursue, he feels engulfed and pulls away further. When you give up and create distance, he feels safe and comes closer. Then when he comes closer, you relax and open up, which triggers his fear of intimacy, and he pulls away again. The cycle continues indefinitely, with neither person ever feeling truly satisfied. Breaking this pattern requires understanding your own attachment style and doing the work to become more securely attached. It requires choosing partners who can offer consistency and availability, even if it doesn't initially trigger that familiar spark. It requires retraining your nervous system to recognize healthy love. The magnetic pull of familiarity. Humans are creatures of habit. Even when those habits hurt us, they feel comfortable because they're familiar. There's a concept in psychology called the familiarity principle. We tend to prefer things we're familiar with, even if those things are negative. If you grew up in chaos, chaos will feel like home. If you grew up with criticism, relationships without criticism might feel wrong. If you grew up with uncertainty, stability might feel boring or even threatening. This explains why women often find themselves in relationships that eerily resemble their relationships with their parents. They're not doing this consciously. Their nervous system is simply seeking what feels familiar, because familiar equals safe to the primitive brain, even when familiar actually means dangerous. When you meet a man who triggers this sense of familiarity, you might experience it as love at first sight or an inexplicable connection. You might feel like you've known him forever. You might feel drawn to him in a way you can't explain. But this pull you're feeling might not be love. It might be recognition. Your nervous system recognizing a familiar pattern. Breaking free from the magnetic pull of familiarity requires going against your instincts. It requires choosing the unfamiliar, even when the unfamiliar feels uncomfortable. It requires staying present with the discomfort of newness until your nervous system recalibrates. If you've always chosen emotionally unavailable men, choosing an emotionally available man will feel strange. It might not trigger that overwhelming spark of attraction. You might even question if you're really into him. But attraction can grow. Chemistry can develop over time. What feels unfamiliar today can become familiar tomorrow. The question is, are you willing to give unfamiliar a chance? The fear of your own power. This is perhaps one of the most profound and least acknowledged reasons smart women fall for the wrong men. Fear of their own power. As a smart, accomplished woman, you know you're capable. You know you can build a life, solve problems, achieve goals. But there's a kind of freedom and responsibility that comes with truly owning your power that can feel overwhelming. When you're in a relationship with a dysfunctional man, when you're focused on his problems, his needs, his growth, you're distracted from your own life. You're not fully stepping into your potential because you're too busy managing his dysfunction. In a twisted way, it serves you. It gives you a reason not to fully pursue your dreams, not to take the risks that would allow you to reach your full potential, not to face the challenges of truly owning your greatness. Having a problematic relationship can be an unconscious distraction from the work of becoming who you're meant to be. There's also a dynamic where being with a man who needs you, who's somehow less than you, can feel safer than being with a man who's your equal or who challenges you to grow. A man who's truly your equal won't accept you playing small. He'll call you out when you're not living up to your potential. He'll expect you to show up fully, and that can feel threatening. It's easier to be with someone who needs you, to be his therapist, his mother, his savior, than to be with someone who sees you as a complete woman and expects you to be accountable for your choices and your life. Owning your power means taking full responsibility for your life. It means you can't blame anyone else for your unhappiness. It means you have to face your fears, your limiting beliefs, your resistance to growth. It means you have to be willing to be visible, to risk failure, to potentially disappoint others. Being in a dysfunctional relationship gives you a convenient excuse to not do this work. Breaking this pattern requires asking yourself, what am I avoiding in my own life by focusing so much energy on him? What would I have to face if I were single? What would I have to deal with if I weren't spending so much time and emotional energy on this relationship? What part of me benefits from staying small? The rationalization machine. Your intelligent mind, the same mind that serves you so well in other areas, can actually work against you in relationships by creating sophisticated rationalizations for staying with the wrong man. Because you're smart, you're good at building arguments, you're good at seeing multiple perspectives, you're good at finding explanations for behavior, and you use these skills to explain away red flags. He didn't call when he said he would, not because he's unreliable, but because he's busy. He was cruel in an argument, not because he's verbally abusive, but because he was stressed. He can't commit, not because he doesn't want to be with you, but because he has commitment issues from his past. He lies, not because he's dishonest, but because he's afraid of conflict. You create narratives that cast his behavior in the most generous possible light. You give him the benefit of the doubt again and again. You explain to your friends why this situation is different, why it's more complicated than it seems, why they don't understand. Your intelligence allows you to construct elaborate justifications for staying, and because these justifications are intelligent and well articulated, you believe them. But rationalization is just a sophisticated form of denial. It's your mind's way of protecting you from a painful truth you're not ready to face, that this man is not right for you, that this relationship is hurting you, that you need to leave. Breaking through rationalization requires listening to your body instead of your mind. Your body knows the truth. When you're with him, do you feel relaxed or tense? When you see his name on your phone, do you feel excited or anxious? When you think about the future, do you feel hopeful or dread? Your body will tell you what your mind is trying to hide. Trust your gut, even when your mind is telling you a different story. The loneliness of being understood. One of the deepest human needs is to be truly seen and understood. For many women, especially as they get older and find themselves in a world that often marginalizes older women, this need becomes increasingly powerful. When you meet a man who seems to understand you, who seems to see into your soul, who gets you in a way no one else has, it creates a powerful bond. This is especially true if you've felt misunderstood for much of your life. But here's what often happens with the wrong men. They're very good at creating the illusion of deep understanding in the early stages. They pay attention. They ask questions. They seem fascinated by everything about you. They make you feel like the most interesting person in the world. This mirroring and intense attention can feel like you've finally found someone who truly sees you. But as the relationship progresses, that understanding disappears. He stops being interested in your inner world. He stops asking questions. He becomes focused on himself. But by then, you're already bonded. You're already invested. And you keep hoping that the man who seemed to understand you so well in the beginning will come back. You think that you can recapture that early magic if you just try hard enough. The painful truth is that the early intense interest might have been a manipulation tactic, conscious or unconscious. Some men are very good at creating false intimacy quickly. They learn about you not because they truly care, but because it's an effective way to bond you to them. Once you're bonded, they don't need to keep up the act. Or sometimes the early interest was genuine, but it was based on the fantasy of who he wanted you to be, not who you actually are. As you reveal your real self with all your complexities and contradictions, he loses interest because you're not matching the fantasy anymore. True understanding in a relationship isn't just about the early stage. It's about sustained interest, curiosity, and care over time. It's about someone who wants to understand the fullness of who you are, who you've been, and who you're becoming. If you're holding on to a relationship because of how well he seemed to understand you in the beginning, you need to ask yourself, does he understand me now? Is he interested in understanding me? Or am I clinging to a memory of how things were? The perfectionism trap. Many smart women are perfectionists. You hold yourself to high standards. You work hard to achieve excellence. You believe that if you just do things right, if you're good enough, smart enough, attractive enough, you'll get the results you want. This mindset works well in many areas of life. In school, hard work leads to good grades. In your career, excellence leads to advancement. But in relationships with the wrong men, perfectionism becomes a trap. You believe that if you can just be the perfect partner, if you can just love him the right way, if you can just be understanding enough, patient enough, supportive enough, the relationship will work. When the relationship struggles, you don't blame him. You blame yourself. You think, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to change? How can I be better? You exhaust yourself trying to be perfect, trying to not make waves, trying to anticipate his needs and meet them before he even asks. You walk on eggshells. You edit yourself. You become smaller and smaller, trying to fit into the space he's willing to give you. But here's the truth. No amount of perfection on your part will fix a fundamentally flawed relationship. You cannot be perfect enough to make an emotionally unavailable man become available. You cannot be perfect enough to make a commitment-phobic man commit. You cannot be perfect enough to make an abusive man stop being abusive. The problems in the relationship are not about your imperfection. They're about incompatibility, dysfunction, or his unwillingness to show up fully. Perfectionism keeps you trapped because it puts all the responsibility on you. As long as you believe you're the problem, you'll keep trying to fix yourself instead of recognizing that the relationship itself is the problem. Breaking free from perfectionism requires accepting that you are imperfect, and that's okay. You are enough as you are. The right man will love you not despite your imperfections, but including them. The right man won't require you to be perfect. He'll accept you as you are. The isolation factor. Being in a relationship with the wrong man often leads to increasing isolation. Maybe he doesn't like your friends and gradually you see them less. Maybe he's critical of your family and you distance yourself from them. Maybe he demands so much of your time and emotional energy that you have nothing left for other relationships. Maybe the relationship is chaotic enough that you're embarrassed to talk about it with others. Isolation serves the wrong man because it means you have fewer outside perspectives, challenging your perception of the relationship. You have fewer people pointing out red flags. You have fewer support systems that might give you the strength to leave. But isolation also makes it harder for you to see clearly. When you're isolated, your world becomes smaller. Your reality becomes limited to the relationship. You lose perspective. You start to question your own judgment. You begin to wonder if maybe you're too sensitive, too demanding, too damaged. Without the mirror of other healthy relationships, you lose the ability to see that what you're experiencing is not normal, not healthy, and not acceptable. Breaking the pattern of choosing wrong men often requires breaking the isolation. It requires reaching out to friends and family, even when you're embarrassed. It requires being honest about what's really happening in your relationship. It requires allowing people who love you to reflect back what they see. It requires rebuilding the support systems that have eroded. This is hard because it means admitting you've made choices you're not proud of. It means being vulnerable about your struggles, but isolation keeps you trapped. Connection sets you free. You need other perspectives. You need reality checks. You need people who can remind you of who you are outside of this relationship. You need support as you navigate the difficult process of change. The cost of leaving. One of the reasons smart women stay with the wrong men is that they're acutely aware of what leaving will cost them. It's not that they're blind to the problems. It's that the cost of leaving feels higher than the cost of staying. There might be financial considerations. Maybe you've built a life together. Maybe you depend on his income. Maybe leaving would mean a significant decrease in your standard of living. There might be social considerations. Maybe you share friend groups. Maybe leaving would mean losing social standing or facing judgment from your community. Maybe you're tired of explaining another failed relationship. There might be practical considerations. Maybe you live together. Maybe you have pets together. Maybe you're intertwined in ways that would be complicated to untangle. There might be emotional considerations. Despite everything, you still love him. Despite the pain, there are good moments. Despite knowing it's wrong, there's comfort in the familiar. There might be identity considerations. You've invested years in this relationship. Your sense of self has become tied to it. Leaving would mean redefining who you are. For older women, there are additional considerations. You've been through divorce before. You're tired. The thought of starting over feels overwhelming. You wonder if you have the energy to rebuild your life again. You fear the loneliness that might come with being single at your age. These are all valid concerns. The costs are real. But what often happens is that you become so focused on the costs of leaving that you stop calculating the cost of staying. Staying costs you your peace of mind. It costs you your emotional health. It costs you your time, the precious time you have left on this earth. It costs you the opportunity to find real love. It costs you your connection to yourself. It costs you your joy. When you really tally up the cost of staying versus the cost of leaving, leaving becomes the more reasonable choice. But you have to be willing to do the honest accounting. The slow erosion of self. What makes relationships with the wrong men so insidious is that the damage often happens gradually. It's not one big traumatic event. It's 1,000 small moments of disrespect, dismissal, disappointment. It's death by 1,000 cuts. At first, you accommodate. He doesn't like a certain friend, so you see her less. He criticizes your appearance, so you change how you dress. He's uncomfortable with your success, so you downplay your achievements. He needs your support with his issues, so you put yours aside. Each individual compromise seems small. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. You tell yourself this is what relationships require. But over time, these small compromises add up. You look in the mirror one day and don't recognize yourself. You realize you've lost touch with hobbies you used to love. You notice your friends have stopped calling. You recognize that you've become smaller, quieter, less vibrant. This erosion of self is one of the most damaging aspects of being with the wrong man. And because it happens gradually, you might not even notice it until significant damage has been done. You adjust to each new normal. Your baseline for acceptable treatment keeps shifting lower. What would have been unacceptable a year ago is now your daily reality. This is why it's so important to pay attention to who you're becoming in a relationship. Are you growing or shrinking? Are you more yourself or less? Are you expanding or contracting? Are you happier or sadder? A good relationship should make you more of who you are, not less. It should support your growth, not stunt it. It should add to your life, not subtract from it. If you're in a relationship where you're constantly compromising core parts of yourself, where you feel like you're losing yourself, where you're becoming someone you don't recognize, it doesn't matter how much you love him or how long you've been together, you need to get out. The redemption fantasy. Many women stay with the wrong men because they're holding on to a fantasy of redemption. They believe that their love story will have a triumphant ending where their patience, faith, and devotion are finally rewarded. He'll have a breakthrough. He'll realize what he almost lost. He'll change completely. He'll become the man they always knew he could be. And everyone who doubted the relationship will be proven wrong. This fantasy is often reinforced by cultural narratives. Movies and novels frequently feature love stories where the woman's persistence wins over a difficult man, where love conquers all, where transformation happens through the power of romantic love. But these are stories, not reality. In reality, relationships don't usually have redemptive arcs. In reality, people mostly stay who they are. In reality, the woman who stays hoping for transformation usually just stays stuck. The redemption fantasy is seductive because it gives meaning to your suffering. If your patience and pain are leading somewhere, if they're part of a larger story that will eventually make sense, then they feel bearable. But when you strip away the fantasy and look at the facts, you're often forced to confront a harder truth. You're waiting for something that's never going to come. Breaking free from the redemption fantasy requires grieving. You need to grieve the story you thought you were living. You need to grieve the ending you hoped for. You need to grieve the version of him that existed in your imagination but never existed in reality. This grief is real and painful, but it's also necessary. On the other side of grief is freedom. The unwillingness to admit mistakes. Sometimes smart women stay with the wrong men simply because they don't want to admit they made a mistake. If you're someone who prides herself on making good decisions, admitting you made a bad one can feel intolerable. You've defended this relationship to friends and family who had concerns. You've told everyone he's misunderstood. You've asked people to give him a chance. You've stood by him through difficult times. Admitting that this relationship was a mistake would mean admitting you were wrong. It would mean facing the embarrassment of having defended something that wasn't worth defending. It would mean acknowledging that people who expressed concerns were right. Pride keeps many women in wrong relationships longer than they should stay. But here's what you need to understand. Everyone makes mistakes. Making a mistake doesn't mean you're stupid. It means you're human. And the only real mistake is staying in a situation that's hurting you just because you don't want to admit you were wrong. There's far more wisdom in recognizing a mistake and correcting course than in stubbornly staying on the wrong path. The people who truly love you won't judge you for leaving. They'll be relieved. And the people who might judge you don't matter. Your happiness, your well-being, your life. These are too important to sacrifice on the altar of not wanting to admit a mistake. Give yourself permission to be wrong. Give yourself permission to change your mind. Give yourself permission to choose differently now than you chose before. This is growth, not failure. The biological imperative. We need to acknowledge the role that biology plays in attraction and bonding. Humans are wired for pair bonding. We're social creatures who seek connection. When you bond with someone, your brain releases oxytocin, sometimes called the love hormone or bonding hormone. This hormone creates feelings of attachment and trust. It's the same hormone released during breastfeeding, creating the powerful bond between mother and child. Oxytocin is released during physical intimacy, which is why sex can create powerful feelings of bonding, even with the wrong person. The more physically intimate you are with someone, the more bonded you become, regardless of whether they're good for you. From an evolutionary perspective, this bonding mechanism served an important purpose. It kept people together long enough to raise offspring. But in the modern world, it can keep people together even when the relationship is harmful. Your biology is working against your better judgment. Your body is bonded to him even though your mind knows he's wrong for you. This biological bonding can make leaving feel almost physically painful. It is a kind of withdrawal, similar to withdrawal from an addictive substance. Your brain is craving the hormones it's become accustomed to. Understanding this biological component can help you have compassion for yourself. You're not weak. You're not irrational. You're fighting against powerful biological forces. Breaking the bond requires time, distance, and often a period of deliberate detachment. It requires going no contact long enough for your neurochemistry to rebalance. It's not just about changing your mind. It's about allowing your body to catch up with what your mind knows to be true. The incompatibility with healthy love. Here's a difficult truth. Sometimes smart women end up with the wrong men because they're not yet compatible with healthy love. This doesn't mean they're broken or damaged beyond repair. It means they haven't yet done the internal work necessary to recognize and receive healthy love. If you have unhealed trauma, unprocessed pain, unresolved childhood wounds, you carry all of this into your relationships, and it creates a filter through which you perceive and interact with potential partners. A man who's emotionally available might trigger your fear of abandonment, causing you to push him away before he can reject you. A man who's consistently kind might bore you because you associate love with drama and intensity. A man who respects your boundaries might feel distant because you're used to enmeshment. A man who's secure in himself might not give you the opportunity to be needed that you crave. In other words, the qualities that make someone a good partner might be the very qualities that don't resonate with you, given where you are in your healing journey. Meanwhile, the qualities that make someone a bad partner, emotional unavailability, inconsistency, neediness, controlling behavior, might feel familiar and therefore attractive. This is why the work of healing yourself is so important. It's not just about avoiding wrong men. It's about becoming the kind of person who can recognize and be nourished by healthy love. It's about healing your wounds so that healthy stops feeling boring and toxic, stops feeling exciting. It's about doing the internal work so that your radar for good men gets recalibrated. Sometimes you have to be single for a while to do this work. You have to step out of the pattern of jumping from relationship to relationship. You have to spend time alone, getting to know yourself, processing your past, understanding your patterns. This can be uncomfortable. Being alone with yourself, without the distraction of a relationship, means facing things you've been avoiding, but it's necessary work, and it's the only way to become compatible with the kind of love you actually deserve. The power of narrative. Humans are storytelling creatures. We make sense of our lives through the stories we tell ourselves, and sometimes the story you've been telling yourself about who you are includes being someone who loves difficult men, someone who stands by people others have given up on, someone who sees potential where others see problems. This narrative might be tied to your identity in deep ways. Maybe you're proud of your loyalty. Maybe you see yourself as someone who doesn't give up easily. Maybe your self-esteem is tied to being the kind of person who can handle what others can't. Maybe you've built your identity around being a healer, a fixer, a believer in human potential. If this is the story you tell about yourself, then choosing and staying with difficult men becomes a way of living out that identity. It confirms who you believe you are. Leaving would require not just ending the relationship, but revising the story of who you are. This can feel like a loss of self, but identities can evolve. The story you've been telling about yourself can be edited. You can be loyal without being someone who tolerates mistreatment. You can believe in people's potential without being responsible for realizing it. You can be compassionate without being a martyr. You can be strong without having to constantly prove it by enduring difficult relationships. The question is, what story do you want to tell about this phase of your life? Do you want to be the woman who stayed too long, or the woman who had the courage to leave? Do you want to be the woman who kept trying to make it work, or the woman who chose herself? You get to write your story. What kind of heroine do you want to be? The difficulty of starting over. Let's be honest about something. Starting over is hard, especially when you're an older woman. The thought of re-entering the dating world, of having to meet new people, of going through the process of getting to know someone, of risking being hurt again, it's exhausting. When you're with someone, even if they're wrong for you, at least it's known. You know what to expect. You know the patterns. There's a certain comfort in that predictability, even when it's predictably painful. Starting over means facing the unknown. It means being vulnerable again. It means risking rejection. It means putting yourself out there when you're tired and hurt and not sure you have it in you. It's tempting to stay with the familiar pain rather than face the uncertain pain of starting over. But here's what you need to remember. You're going to face pain either way. The question is, do you want the pain that comes from staying in something that's slowly destroying you, or the pain that comes from the brave act of choosing something better for yourself? The pain of staying is chronic. It goes on day after day, month after month, year after year. It's a low-grade, constant drain on your spirit. The pain of leaving is acute. It's intense for a period of time. But it ends, and on the other side of it is possibility. On the other side of it is freedom. On the other side of it is the chance for real happiness. Yes, starting over is hard, but so is staying. Choose your hard. The reclamation. So what's the way forward? How do smart women stop falling for the wrong men? It begins with reclamation. Reclaiming your power. Reclaiming your sense of self. Reclaiming your right to a love that nourishes rather than depletes you. It starts with brutal honesty. Look at your relationship patterns without flinching. Look at what you've tolerated. Look at the red flags you've ignored. Look at your role in perpetuating unhealthy dynamics. Not to blame yourself, but to understand yourself. It requires feeling your feelings. All the anger you've been suppressing, all the grief you've been avoiding, all the shame you've been carrying, all the fear that's been driving your choices. Feel it all. Let it move through you. Feelings that are felt can be released. Feelings that are suppressed become prisons. It demands boundary setting, learning to say no, learning to walk away from what doesn't serve you, learning that your needs matter, learning that love shouldn't hurt, learning that you don't have to accept crumbs, learning that you deserve a full, nourishing meal. It necessitates self-compassion, being gentle with yourself about the choices you've made, understanding that you did the best you could with the awareness you had at the time, forgiving yourself for staying too long, for believing lies, for ignoring intuition, treating yourself with the same kindness you've given to men who didn't deserve it. It calls for healing work. This might mean therapy. It might mean support groups. It might mean journaling, meditation, energy work, whatever modalities resonate with you. The point is to address the root causes of why you've chosen the wrong men, not just the symptoms. It requires time alone, time to rediscover who you are outside of relationships, time to rebuild your relationship with yourself, time to remember what you enjoy, what you value, what you dream about, time to become whole within yourself rather than seeking wholeness through another person. It involves learning discernment, developing the ability to see people clearly, not as you wish they were, but as they actually are. Trusting your intuition, paying attention to actions rather than words, recognizing red flags early and taking them seriously. It entails raising your standards, deciding what you will and won't accept in a relationship, getting clear on your non-negotiables, understanding that having standards isn't being demanding, it's having self-respect. It means becoming the kind of partner you want to attract. If you want emotional availability, you must be emotionally available. If you want honesty, you must be honest. If you want growth, you must be growing. Like attracts like. Healthy attracts healthy. The new beginning. Breaking the pattern of falling for the wrong men isn't easy. It requires courage, commitment, and consistency. There will be moments when you're tempted to go back to old patterns. There will be moments when healthy love feels uncomfortable. There will be moments when you doubt yourself. But if you stay the course, if you keep doing the work, something shifts. You begin to see men more clearly. You recognize red flags immediately. You don't make excuses for poor behavior. You trust yourself. You don't ignore warning signs. You don't rationalize or minimize. You simply see what's there and make decisions accordingly. You begin to feel different in your body. You're less anxious, more grounded, more centered in yourself. You stop seeking validation externally because you've developed internal validation. You begin to attract different men because you're showing up differently. Different people are drawn to you. Or perhaps the same types of men are drawn to you, but now you don't engage. You recognize them for what they are and you move on. You might meet a man who's emotionally available, consistent, and genuinely interested in you. And at first, it might feel strange. It might not have the intensity you're used to. But if you give it a chance, if you allow yourself to stay present with the discomfort of something new, something beautiful can emerge. Real intimacy, real trust, real partnership, not the fantasy of what could be, but the reality of what is. And you realize that this calm, steady, nourishing love, this is what you were searching for all along. All those wrong men, they were just detours on the path to finding yourself. Because ultimately, that's what this journey is about. Not finding the right man, finding yourself, loving yourself, choosing yourself. The right man, should he come, will be a bonus. But he won't be a necessity, because you'll already be complete. If you've made it this far, thank you for taking this journey with me. Understanding why smart, older women fall for the wrong men isn't about judgment. It's about compassion, clarity, and ultimately, liberation. You're not broken because you've made these choices. You're human, and now you have the awareness to make different choices going forward. Remember, you're not alone in this struggle. Countless women have walked this path before you. Countless women are walking it beside you right now, and countless women will walk it after you. Your willingness to look at these patterns, to understand them, to do the work of healing, that's what will set you free. Before you go, if this video resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video so more women can find this message. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts, your experiences, or your insights. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos on relationships, psychology, and personal growth. Share this video with a friend who might need to hear this message. And if you'd like to support the creation of more content like this, please consider showing your appreciation with a super thanks. Your support makes this work possible. Remember, you deserve love that nourishes you. You deserve a partner who sees you, values you, and shows up consistently. You deserve peace. You deserve joy. You deserve to feel safe in love. Don't settle for less. You're worth so much more than you've been accepting. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this brave work of self-examination and growth. I'm honored to be part of your journey. Until next time, be gentle with yourself, trust yourself, and never forget your worth.